Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday. It's the 21st of May. Can you believe we are almost at the end of May? My name's Mary Gregory. It is Lessons in Leadership. Very warm welcome to you all. It's episode 28 today, and we have the wonderful, another phenomenal leader, Amanda Johnson, with us today. Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Mary. Thank you for having me.
A real absolute pleasure having you here today. And you are a phenomenal leader. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to share about your story, because I know that currently you are heading up, you're managing director of one of Europe's leading virtual assistant training, coaching and training organizations. So, and that in itself, having established that, I know there's a story behind that as well. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing all about that. But you started your career way back in the Navy. So you transitioned from the Navy into running your own business as a VA, and now you're heading up your own consultancy and coaching and training VAs. I would love to hear more about what got you from there and got you to here. So would you like to start sharing with us a bit about your story?
Of course. So I actually served 23 years in the Royal Navy. I worked my way up from the most junior position. I joined at age 17. In 1990, I became an officer in 1997. So that's when although I did leadership as a junior rate pre-97, my leadership started probably in 97 when I became an officer.
Yes.
And that carried on, served around the world, served on ships, served in shore establishments, had great fun. My husband always says I got drunk around the world and shopped around the world, but actually I had some great opportunities. And then in 2008, I had a life-changing event. My children died, and I had twins that were born extremely prematurely,
yes,
who lived for 8 hours and then passed away. And although I was still serving in the military at that point, the bottom of my world fell out.
Yes.
And at that point, I reevaluated life. I realised that life was too short, and that actually I didn't want to be serving in the military anymore. I loved my job, I was good at my job and all of those sorts of things, but I decided actually it was time to move on.
Yes.
And a very senior naval officer sat me down and he said, "Amanda, you're not going anywhere." And I said, "I am, sir, I'm leaving." And he said, "No, you're not." He said, "You're 18 months from pension, you need to stay, and we will do whatever we need to do to get you through the next 18 months.
Wow.
And so I did, I stayed. Fast forward a little bit, I became pregnant again and gave birth to what's now my oldest son, James. And at that point, though, I said to the Navy, "Okay, do you know what? I now need to leave. I'm ready to go." And I was very lucky. I managed to get voluntary redundancy. But at that point, at the point of getting that voluntary redundancy, I was actually serving in Belgium. I was looking after 3,500 people in 15 locations across 10 countries. Wow. And so I had a busy job. I had a young child. We were living in a different country. My husband, who was up until that point in the army, was leaving the army. And so we left. And I came out into what I describe as the real world and said, "Do you know what? I would love a job where I have no stress, no pressure, no staff, no appraisals, no budgets, nothing. I just want to go to work, drop the child at nursery, whatever, go to work, come home and not have to worry about anything." Yes. And I started applying for jobs and people would say to me, "Oh, you're overqualified." And I was like, "I don't care. I don't want any of that. I just want to come and do a job." And so eventually I realised that actually I was overqualified for a lot of things, or didn't have the right piece of paper for other types of jobs, because a lot of my experience had been military.
Yes.
And so at that point I went, "Do you know what? I'm going to go and become a virtual assistant." And that's what I did. I became a virtual assistant. I ran my own VA business very successfully. But typical military, I needed to go and research it to the nth degree. I needed to make sure I had the qualification to go and do it. And so I trained with a company called VACT. And then 18 months later, I became a licensed trainer for them. 6 months after that, I bought the company.
Wow.
And so that's my story from going from naval officer to VA to running this business.
Right. Okay. So if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind digging down into that bit, because that is a phenomenal journey that you've been on. And I'm conscious we've got people watching today, which is fantastic. So if you are watching and you have any questions or any comments you want to make, please do put them in the comments box, and please put your name before, just pop your name in before, because we are on StreamYard and it doesn't automatically show your name. So I'd like to just go back, because it was really shocking to hear about the death of your children and your babies, and the fact that you knew you wanted to leave work at that point. How did you deal with the grief and managing being back at work? Because I think that is something that many people have to deal with, particularly in what we've been going through in the last year, 18 months. But losing both your children like that, and then having to get back into work, I just wonder what that was like and how you did it.
Well, because my children were born after 24 weeks, you're actually entitled to your full maternity, should you wish to take it.
Yes.
So the military said to me, go take 6 months off, etc. But actually, I couldn't take 6 months off. I needed a reason to get up in the mornings.
Yes.
So after 3 months, I went back to work. Do you know what? It was too early, but I wasn't prepared to listen to anybody. I needed a reason to get up, to get showered, to go to work, and to have a purpose, actually.
Yes.
To do something. Looking back, I probably wasn't the most effective that I've ever been in my military career or in my professional career, but I needed a reason to get up and go to work.
Yes.
And if I take back to when the children actually died, so the children died, what did I do? Well, then I organised a funeral. And when I remember talking to my bereavement support worker, I was helped by a charity which is called Spring, supporting parents and relatives in neonatal grief. And they were absolutely amazing. And do you know what? I didn't know charities like that existed when the children, but they were absolutely amazing. But I remember talking to the support worker one day, and she said to me, Amanda, it's so strange. She said, it's almost funny. She said, it's like the shutters come down and you go into work mode, you go into control mode, you go into, I need to organise this, I need to do that, She said, and once that organisation piece is done, she said, the shutters come back up and we get the real you. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. I've been in horrible situations in my military career that even today, the shutters come down, the stuff is in a locked box, and I'm not prepared to open those boxes or in particular environments. And it's just, so for me, grief is one of those things. I still think of my children every day. I have their picture on my desk next to me now for being on this call. I still talk about them. We're lucky. We've got our oldest little boy, James, and we now have another son as well, Jacob. And do you know what? Both of my children know about their brother and sister. Yes. They know that they're not here. But for me, the way I deal with grief is they are part of my life. It's not, they're not forgotten about. They're not anything like that. And it was only after they had died, so many people wrote to me to say, do you know what? That happened to us.
Yes.
And it was a lot more common than what you realise, because people don't talk about the death of a child.
Yes.
They don't talk about death generally, but they don't talk about the death of a child. And I always talk about, I've joined a club that you don't want anybody else to join. So I've joined the bereaved parent club, but I didn't ask to join there, and I wouldn't want anybody else to join it. But the statistics are 15 babies die a day in birth, either neonatally, prematurely, stillborn, etc. 15 babies a day die in the UK. So that's 15 people going through what I went through every single day. And I was going to say it's too many, but it's one of those things.
Yes. So people reached out to you, people shared, and you were supported by that. And do you give back to that community now?
Yeah, I do. So my husband and I over the years have fundraised quite a lot for the charity that helped us.
Yes.
Because that was our way of giving back and saying thank you for the help that we had. I still support charities like so Spring, the one that helped us, SANS, which is another national charity. And also when I hear of somebody else whose baby's passed or whatever, what I tend to do is now write to them and whatever.
Yeah.
It never ever goes away. You learn coping mechanisms rather than it ever going away.
Yeah. I like the way you describe it's part of your life now, and they are still part of your life, which absolutely, just because someone isn't present anymore, with any death actually, just because someone isn't present doesn't mean they've disappeared. They're still in you. They're still part of who you are. So, yes.
One of the things I did when they died, and actually looking back, people used to think I was barking, but we had a bench put next to their grave in the cemetery, and I used to sit on it and read to them every day. And if anybody who's got parents listening to, or who's got children listening to this, there's a children's book called Who's in the Loo? There's a very long queue. Is it an elephant having a poo? And I can recite the whole book, to be fair, off the top of my head now. But I used to read this book every day. And the reason I read this book every day to the children was it was the first book I'd bought for them before they were even born.
Yes.
And it was just my way of being close. Now that book has become a firm favourite of my living children, and it's still on our shelf and all of that.
Yes.
But it was, at the time, it was my coping mechanism.
Right. Wonderful, though. Wonderful that you were able to use that and to express yourself and work through the loss and the grief through that. And what a lovely way to do it, by sitting next to their graves. So how do you feel? I mean, this is a really shocking event to have had to have gone through. I mean, I just can't imagine what it must have been like. How do you feel you have grown as a human being as a result of going through that?
I don't know if I've grown as a human being. I live life now. I know what's important to me. I know that life is too short. Yes. I don't always get it right. So, for example, as a business owner, I talk about work-life integration rather than work-life balance. Because for me, work-life balance is you're making compromises, one or the other. And what we talk about in our family is we talk about work-life integration. Sometimes we will make decisions that are for the best of the business, and sometimes I will make decisions that are the best for my family.
Yes.
So to give you an example, tomorrow I'm running a one-day coaching course or a training course tomorrow. It's a whole day, which is a Saturday, which means I'm not going to be here. It's the day my children are not at school, but it's the ideal time for my clients to attend.
Yes.
And so actually I'm making that compromise that, do you know what? The children are going to spend the day with their dad. They'll play computer games. They'll have fun. It's a bit different, more different in lockdown, but normally if I wasn't here, they'd go off somewhere and do something fun and all of those things. And I'm going to go and run a training day, which is great. And when I talk about that with the children, I say, oh yeah, but mummy, you're away for a Saturday. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But in a week's time, you're off school for a week for half term and you've got me every day. And so for me, yes, I am making a choice about tomorrow, but in a week's time, my children are off school for a week. And so it's about integrating both sides of my life, business and professional, and my family, to make sure that we have the best possible life that we have.
Yes. Fantastic. So you talked earlier on about, your drive for setting up your own business came on the back of wanting to not really have to appraise people, to manage anyone, to lead anyone. Just run your own business, do it yourself, and that'll be fine. How's that
no
worked
budgets,
out?
no staff, no nothing.
How's that worked out, bearing in mind you ended up buying out another business? So tell me a bit more about that.
It doesn't really go hand in hand at all, actually. In the military, you move jobs every 2 years. And so when I set up my VA business, I always knew that within 5 years, I either wanted to have an agency where I had lots of VAs working as part of it. I either wanted to franchise, or I wanted to go into coaching and training and mentoring, or a combination of all three. But because the reality is you're always looking for the next thing. You're always looking to build and to grow and to professionally develop yourself and those that you work with. And so a lot of the things I did, so I took my first team member at the 12-month point because I had another baby, and therefore I needed to take time off to look after him. So instead of that being 5 years, that was the 12-month point. About the 18-month point, I started to coach and train and mentor. That was meant to be 5 years. That became the 18-month point, but it was a very natural progression because that's what I'd done all the way through my military career. Yes. And I'd started by sort of mentoring the people who were part of my team. And then it was like the opportunity came up to buy the area of the south of England with the company I had trained with. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then 6 months later, the owners went, actually, we either need to sell or we're going to fold or whatever. And I was like, I've already invested too much time, effort, money building this side of the business. Yes. Okay, I'll just buy the whole thing. And that's what I did. And so from 2014 until the end of 2016, early 2017, I ran my doing business alongside the training business. And in about 2016, I realized at some point I needed to sleep. I had 2 children that didn't like sleep. I had my business. By then, my husband had launched his business. We'd done a major house renovation. You had all the stresses in.
You like a challenge, don't you?
Yeah, you had all the stresses in. And I think they always say there's something like 20 things over the period of your lifetime. I think we did about 6 of them in one go. And I suddenly went, okay, I need to sleep. And so at that point, I sold my doing business and I just kept the coaching and the training, because that's really where my passion lies. And my passion lies in making a difference. And so whether that's making a difference to clients when I was doing the admin, or whether that's making the difference to other business owners.
Yes.
And that's effectively what I now do with virtual assistants.
Yes. Sounds incredible. And I keep hearing that you keep tuning back into your purpose and of what's meaningful for you. That's really helped you navigate that.
Yeah.
And also the whole, so much on your plates. I mean, I talk about motherhood and spinning the plates, or parenthood, not just mothers but fathers too, spinning all the plates of that. You are obviously a queen of plate spinning with all the things that you took on.
People often say to me, how do you manage it all? And actually, the reality is I juggle. I'm very much a list person. I am a control freak. But that's typical for virtual assistants, to be fair. Yes, we are that control freak. But it's about knowing deadlines and juggling and meeting those demands. For me, business is the long game. Business isn't the short game. It's about knowing what it is you want out in the future.
Yes.
And then bringing the steps back to knowing what's important today.
Yes.
In order to get you to that longer term vision.
Yes. Great. That's a great description of developing your strategy there in one quick sentence. That's perfect. So I'm conscious you've shared a really poignant story about the loss of your babies and the whole journey through the grief of that, and then establishing your business and things. You are a phenomenal leader. That's how I started describing you, because I haven't known you long. We were introduced by my own virtual assistant, actually, who completed your training. And, I was blown away by who you are when we first met and had our first conversation. I'd just like to invite you then to share, what is it that was a moment for you that actually caused you to be the person you are, that has really influenced the person you are today and how you show up as a leader today? And it could be linked to the loss of your children, or it could be something else. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
I'm all about core values. I'm all about sort of knowing what's important to me and everything else. And so my military core values, if you were to cut me down the middle sort of thing, I'd be like a stick of Blackpool rock, and you would have my military core values sort of circling there. And that, I learnt those from age 17. That's my formative years. That's why I am what I am. So
what are those values, those military values?
So for me, it's all about honesty, integrity, loyalty.
Yes.
That sort of communication, and that's all part of it. And when I left the military and I went out into the real world, I was still very much a naval officer trying to put civilian clothing on, run a business. So I was still very military minded. And somebody said to me a couple of years later, they went, "You've softened." And I went, "I haven't softened. Everything that was important to me then is still important to me now. But actually, I've learnt when I need to tune stuff down or change the way I talk or change my approach in order to get to where I want to be in business or in life, etc." And when I first went networking, I believed that I could go networking, I'd talk about what I did, and everybody would love me and want me to be their VA.
Yes.
And I was very matter of fact, very direct, very honest. And then I realised that actually that doesn't get you clients, because that's all about you. Yes. And then actually in business, it's not about you, it's about the other person. Absolutely. And 3 months into my business, I read a book by a guy called Bob Berg, and actually it's a co-authored book. It's Bob Berg and John David Mann, and it's called The Go-Giver. And it has 5 principles in it. And it's all about sort of being open to receive and value and giving value and being a go-giver rather than the taker. Yes. And actually what I did is I adapted my business style to run. So I was still being true to my core values, but I realised it wasn't about me. It was about the other person. And that to me is my sort of leadership.
Absolutely.
And even as a leader, when I was in the military, I never asked my staff to do something I wasn't prepared to do myself or hadn't done. And because for me, I needed to lead rather than manage. And there is a difference. The management is all about, it can be dictatorship, it can be you need to do this, consequences, etc. Leadership is actually when somebody wants to go with you because they believe in the path that you're taking them on.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel it's very much about relationships. You've got to have a relationship with those people for them to want to come with you in the first place. But what a beautiful description, Amanda. Thank you so much for that, because you've beautifully described the whole thing about being value-centered, but also the awareness and sensitivity of when to dial up and dial down certain behaviors. So as a leader, it's so valuable to be aware and to know what is appropriate in this situation. How do I need to be, and how am I impacting those people around me so that they'll want to come with me? Yeah,
because it's all about know, like, trust.
Yes.
And people, if you've got the know, like, and trust, actually people, I was going to say people will follow you, but I don't mean that in a sort of evangelical sort of, they'll follow you to the ends of the earth. They'll follow you because invariably, if they know you, like you, and trust you, they believe in the mission or the vision that you're taking them on.
Yes, that's right. And there's also something about for me, as a build on followers, you want people who are leaders. You want to enable people to be leaders themselves. So you don't necessarily just want them to follow you. You want them to contribute.
Yes.
And that's about real leadership, is how do you get people to contribute their optimum potential with you, rather than just going along with what you're saying all the time. You want people to push back.
Exactly. And for me, it's a partnership.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you so much. That's really enlightening. So we are coming to the end of our conversation for today. I always ask the same thing at the end, which is, in these turbulent times that we are hopefully coming through, not sure whether we are or not. I think it's always going to be turbulent for some time anyway. What pearls of wisdom or final words would you like to leave people with today in terms of dealing with these challenging times that we're in?
I think it is about knowing where you're wanting to go.
Yes.
And knowing that it's a path, knowing that it's a journey,
Yes.
knowing that it's not at all achievable tomorrow,
Yeah.
and being open to being adaptable. And so I always talk about in business veering and hauling. It's, you might know where you want to go, but actually sometimes you need to veer and haul the plan.
Yes.
You need to tweak this to tweak that. And so I think it is about knowing where you want to go and not beating yourself up if you don't get there tomorrow.
Yes.
And knowing that it is a plan, and actually putting those steps in place. You can see me with my hands going, yeah. Putting my steps in place to get you where you want to be.
Yes.
But also knowing that sometimes that plan changes.
Yeah.
So if I go back to when I was in the military pre the children, I was a career military person. I could still see myself being there, age 55, promoted, etc. And had the twins have survived, that's what I would still be doing.
Yes, yes.
But their death made me reevaluate that life is too short, life is for living, and actually it's not just my goals, it's my husband's goals, and we need to be together.
Yes. And
have a path that's what we're both wanting. And so even during lockdown, we had things that were on our agenda, our goals that we wanted to do, that we've had to go, do you know what? We're going to change that. And that's okay. It's okay to change the path.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's very good advice. So yeah, we always have a choice. It's not, don't do it for hell or leather. Do it because you really want to do and it. Is it really what you want now? Because we do change. We're constantly changing. Amanda, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest, and thank you to everyone who's been watching today. Do leave comments for Amanda or questions or acknowledgements for her, because she has been a fabulous guest. It's been lovely to have so many people watching today as well. So thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching in catch up, also please do make your comments. We always respond to comments that come on any of our videos that are put on my page. Again, thank you so much, Amanda. And I am going to put us now to think about next week. Next week we have Robert Brighouse, who is CEO of Ocean Media Group. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing Robert's journey. I'm sure it's going to be as rich and as entertaining as yours, Amanda, as well. So that would be great. And Sarah Cook has just said thank you for a great conversation. So thank you for watching, Sarah. And thank you to all of you. We hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.